Hello, 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 and welcome to the show. Who are you? I am your host, Dr. Leah, and today is a special. Like I say, when I find special people, I try to make it special for you because I believe this show is to empower people. And when we find people who can empower you in different areas, in different aspects of your life, we take advantage to bring them on so that we can all learn because we are in the process of learning. We never stop learning. So today we are going to Texas. Today we are meeting a great gentleman. He was a former detective and SWAT breacher. He's sharing secrets for men to achieve peak performance and regain their edge. Today we are talking to men and men and men. And of course, the women, you're allowed to make comment. You're allowed to share with your husbands, with your brothers, with your fathers, with your friends, because it is important for our men to learn as well as women who are learning. So I will not take a lot of your time. I will bring him up so that we can learn from him today. Hello there. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Lee. I appreciate all the energy you're bringing today. That was a great intro. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much that you took up my invitation, and thank you so much because I think you have valuable information, you have valuable experience that you can share also with our men, because I know we share a lot about women, but we also need our men to be learning. We need our men to be inspired, to be empowered, and most of the time they get that from fellow men. And so today we have you on our show so that you can be able to empower them.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to share any insight with your audience out there.
Thank you so much. So, Justin, we go through into. So, tell us, who are you? What you do? Why you do what you do?
So, like you said, I'm former law enforcement. I was a detective, SWAT breacher, training officer, supervisor. I've done a lot of different things within law enforcement, and a few years ago, decided to create my own coaching program. And I take a lot of the tools and techniques that I used in law enforcement and turn them into self-development tools. And so I work with men to help them find their peak performance. And I focus on 3 different areas, which is your mental toughness, your emotional fortitude, and your health awareness. And I believe that all 3 of those areas work with each other to help all aspects of your life.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. That is so awesome. So just, it's very interesting looking at your background, looking at your career that you had. Everybody will be like, what? Why would you leave your, I know.
I've been asked it multiple times. Plus, how does a police officer become a coach? So that's normally the question I get asked. And for me, it was an easy transition because of my passion for training. For years, I trained newer officers on how to do the job. And as a supervisor, training up the guys to be better and to be safer on the job and just constantly improving. And I also work with a company that teaches interview skills and leadership skills. And I think that's what really got me into some of these different aspects of emotional intelligence. That's one of the biggest part of my programs is really helping men figure out how to have that emotional intelligence.
Wow. Wow. Awesome. So as you just said, because you come from a background where you also training people and you try to and make people to be their better version, training them to achieve. Tell us, since you've touched a little bit about the emotion part, tell us, what triggered and what is it about the emotion that triggered you to say, yes, I think I want to reach out to men, especially with the emotional aspect of it? Why the emotional?
Well, it's probably because I realized how misinformed I was about emotions. Growing up as a young man, I was always told, if you had emotions or if you let emotions out, then you were weak. And that was a horrible misconception I had. But learning the science behind emotions and understanding that we can't control the emotions that come up. The emotions are an involuntary reaction to our environment. But what we can control are the reactions to our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And once you really understand that and you're able to master that aspect, nothing else is a big deal. And you can do whatever the heck you want
Mm-hmm.
because nothing's going to stand in your way, and you're not going to let anyone else bother you by the crap that they say.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, exactly. And I just love the way you've put it, because I know, I mean, it's something a lot of men have been taught that, when you show your emotion, you're a weakling, you're behaving like a woman, you're not strong enough. A man has to be strong, has to be toughen up, has to carry everything. But, talk to us through, as a man, how you learned how to, balance your emotion as a man, as a coach, and maybe before in your career as a detective, and how you could balance that as well as in your normal life, just to know that even after you had those misconceptions about how a man's emotion is supposed to be carried. Walk us through how you learned how to master that.
Sure. And, it's a funny thing because when I do get up in a group of, normally law enforcement is like 90 to 95% men. And when I stand up in front of them and say, hey, today we're going to talk about emotions, they look at me like I'm crazy. And they're like, oh no, I'm in the wrong class. Where did we go? And so it takes a little while for men to realize, like, hey, it's just another tool. When you can look at your emotions as another tool or technique, and you can almost hone in on what's going on. It's not a negative thing. That's another aspect that I talk about is emotions are not good or bad. Emotions are either useful or not useful based on the context of the situation. Now, like you brought up, we're told as we grow up that emotions are a bad thing, and if you let them come out, you're weak. And men and women are told a similar story in different ways. Men are told you're weak if you have emotions. Women are told if you have too many emotions. So on both sides, we're being told that emotions are a bad thing, and that's just not true. Emotions are something that come up in our body. It's a physiological response. And normally an emotion lasts for a quarter of a second to 1/25th of a second. And there's also a difference between emotions and feelings. People like to link the two together. The emotion is, like I said, an involuntary reaction to your environment. Your feelings, on the other hand, are what you think about those emotions that you just had. So you can control how you feel in any given moment, but it's really your thoughts about your emotions. And so
Wow.
the biggest tool that I implement on my clients is creating an emotional vocabulary, and I use a specific tool to do that for them.
Awesome. Creating a vocabulary for emotion. So tell us now, you have really differentiated the feelings and emotions, which has also been a very difficult aspect of people to differentiate. And I like even the way you have said, even in both women and men, we are all we have this misinterpretation, and we kind of also confuse both.
Yes.
The most difficult emotion that people get trapped in when they are in that millisecond of a minute.
I don't know if you can compare the most difficult emotions, but I would say that maybe the most prevalent is fear of failure, fear of looking bad in front of other people, that anxiety, whatever level. Because if the tool I use is called the emotional matrix, and it's based on the 7 universal emotions. And that's based on work by Dr. Paul Ekman, who talks about the 7 universal emotions that are expressed in the face. And each of those 7 emotions are felt in different intensity levels. So anger is one of the 7 emotions, but you could feel irate, which would be a high level intensity anger. You could be annoyed, which could be a moderate level, and then bothered. So all of those fall under the umbrella emotion of anger, but it's understanding the different intensity levels that we experience emotions in, and identifying them. But but to answer your question, I would say fear is probably the most prevalent that stops us from doing what we want to do. You know, if we have a goal to set out, or if we want to go talk to the pretty girl across the room, whatever that is, it's some intensity level of fear that hinders our actions.
Awesome. And you talked about a technique, a tool that you normally use for, in your coaching especially, and because we want to cater more for the men. Talk to us about this tool that you use and how you use it with your men and how you see it coming forth. What is the appreciation of using those tools, and what is that feeling for you?
So the tool itself, like I said, it's called the emotional matrix, and the 7 universal emotions are happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, contempt, and surprise. Those are the 7 universal emotions that we express in the face. And when we give this to our students, and we're like, okay, because we'll have the areas blank for the high, medium, and low intensity, and we'll tell people, fill out as many emotional words as you can. And we give them about 5 to 7 minutes. And on average, the students fill out 5 words. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 7. It's always under 10. It's a low number of words, but that is our emotional vocabulary. It's very limited because that's not something taught in school. That's not something that you learn. And people even write down words that aren't necessarily emotional words, like frustrated. People feel like that's an emotional word, but really what that is, it's a combination of different words, because you could be feeling angry and fearful. You could be feeling sad and contemptuous. And so that's like using a shotgun to try to pinpoint your emotions. And that's just not going to work. You have to get very laser focused on the emotions that you're feeling so you can process them out. So the emotional matrix actually has numerous emotional words in every category. And what it does, it helps you identify the specific emotions that come up in any incident that you're dealing with. And it could be something that happened to you 5 minutes ago. It could be something that happened to you a year ago, a decade ago. And if you're not able to get to the specific emotion that comes up, then you're going to hang on to that. You're going to bring it to the next meeting. You're going to bring it home to your family. You're going to carry it around with you for weeks and months. So it's very important to sit down, give yourself 5 minutes to go over the card, find what specific emotions you're feeling, to be able to process them out so you can go to the next involvement with a clean slate, and you're not packing your emotional backpack, as I like to say.
Wow, awesome. We have Joy Ellingdam from UK. She says fantastic. So we have Sheree. She's also from the States. She said that was good. Feelings are your thoughts about emotions. And then she says she also relates with the emotional mix. So we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to continue with Justin as we talk about how he helps and supports men to achieve their peak performance and gain back their edge, because we know that every individual here has something and it needs support. So we all need support at a point of time in our lives, whether you're a man or a woman, a child or an adult. We all need support. And it is how you receive that support, somebody walking alongside you. And for today, our men, we have Justin who is walking alongside them. So we are going to continue in a short break with Justin telling how he does his thing. Hello, welcome back. This is the show, Who Are You? I am your host, Dr. Leah, and our guest today is Justin from Texas. Justin is a coach, and he walks alongside men, helping them to achieve their peak performance, and gain back their edge. So we have already had a little bit about Justin's journey, where he comes from, what he does already, how he works with men. So Justin, that takes me to the next question to you. Talk to us on that one moment where you had, take a figurative man who came, and you looked and you spoke to him, you got all those first consultation, and you thought, okay, this is going to be a huge one. But how it felt when you walked with him and you saw those changes, and definitely the changes will never be in an instant, but when you saw the growth and the development, how it made you feel.
So the favorite story I like to share about one of my clients is, he came to me wanting to be a better boss at work and have better interactions with his, employees. He was a business owner. He felt like maybe his employees were kind of, stepping on him, and he wanted to be able to take back control and be a better boss. And that was the realm that he came to me with. What was funny is that he shared a story with me about how he was cooking breakfast for his family one morning, and while he's cooking breakfast, he ended up hitting his head on the oven, like the vent on the stove. And he said his normal reaction would have been getting upset, maybe throwing the pan. And so when he hit his head on the stove, he said his family was sitting at the table and they were kind of bracing for the storm. They were like, oh no, here goes dad. He's going to flip out again. And he took a breath. He said he pretended to punch the wall, and he went back to cooking like nothing happened. And his family came over, his wife and his daughters were like, well, hang on a second. This isn't how you normally react. Like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm done acting like that. I realize that, that those emotions are, it's me, the difference between the emotions and the feelings, right? Maybe his initial emotion was anger that he hit his head, but the prolonged feeling of, I need to be mad, I need to throw a fit, he realized that wasn't necessary anymore. And so he came to me to change his work life, and it ended up changing his home life. And he also told me that his wife started telling him, hey, well, when's your next call with Justin? When are you calling him again? You need to keep this up, So it affected the family life enough to where his wife was saying, hey, you need to get on the phone with him again. Let's keep this up. I like this new version of you that you've created. That's my favorite story.
Awesome. And don't they say that charity begins at home?
Yeah.
Because I love that story, because whatever we reflect outside, it's always something that has been a habit inside. And for him, he came thinking that his issue actually is in the office, but he had to begin first at home, because when you are able to be in a harmony with the people around very close to you, then you are able to carry this aspect of you outside as well, because then it will reflect automatically, because you see also this aspect of homely person, loving person, caring person, understanding person, somebody who knows, okay, I don't need to be mad at every single thing that happens in my life, is able to also be sober and somber, and also able to handle things outside in a very humbled way, in such a humility that is appreciated.
Yeah. The most basic leadership roles are in your house, like with your family, with your kids, with your friends. Like, it's the same dynamics. It's just that people think that there's a separation when there really is not.
Exactly, because your family is, as much as we don't call them business, but they are people who can help you to be able to be content with yourself, be able to be satisfied with yourself, satisfied with your surrounding. And I just love how he was able to connect that, and the family was also able to support. Talk to us, what would be the most 5 strategies that you use to enable men, especially men who are very blocked and they don't know how to open up easily?
Sure. The first one is obviously that emotional matrix that we talked about before the break. The next one, there's a couple different tools that I implement with my clients. There's another one about vocabulary awareness, which is it uses a version of content analysis, which
Mm-hmm.
is a tool used in law enforcement to determine the truthfulness of written and spoken word. And you
Mm-hmm.
can turn that tool on yourself to realize how truthful you're being when you speak with other people and when you talk about the actions that you want to take. That's one of the first tools that I put out there as well. And dealing with the health side, I tell my clients that you need to move your body every day.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be an Olympic weightlifter. You don't need to be working hard in the gym every day. Whatever it is for you, if you want to go for a jog, if you want to go for a swim, you need to figure something else to move your body every day, because there's so much science behind the idea of working out and getting those endorphins released. They're mood boosters. You feel better about yourself. You create this inner confidence. And so moving your body every day is another strategy. Also, when it comes to the inner critic that we all hear, that voice that tells us, no, you can't do that. Well, let's just go home and sit on the couch. Like we can't accomplish that. I tell my clients to name that voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's an easy way to separate yourself from the ego, because that's what's going
Mm-hmm.
on in there. Your ego is
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep you safe. Your ego is trying to keep you away from harm, whether it's emotional or physical harm. But if
Mm-hmm.
you name it, like for me, I name it Fred. So Fred likes to chime in from time to time, and I don't know anyone else named Fred, so it worked for me. But Fred's a lazy guy. Like, I hear him when I'm in the gym sometimes, and he's like, "Hey, we're done. We can go home. We can just like sit on the couch and drink a beer." And I'll be in the middle of working out, and I'll go, "Oh, that's Fred. Fred, I don't want to listen to you right now. Thanks for chiming in and trying to keep me,
Mm-hmm.
nice and comfy. You go sit in the corner and watch while I do some deadlifts, and we'll be done here in about 30 minutes or so." So that separation kind of helps people understand that difference between the ego, because what I've heard from people is they say, I don't want to act until that voice goes away. Well,
Mm-hmm.
bad news, guys. Like, that voice is never going to go away. You can
Mm-hmm.
quiet it, but in times with high stress, if you're tired, you're hungry, that voice gets louder, and it's attached to your emotional states.
Mm-hmm.
So if you name it something else, it helps you distance yourself from it, so you can choose how you act rather than acting based on that voice in your head. So that's
Mm-hmm.
another huge one that I give my clients. And then also just the idea of doing difficult things often, because if you're not pushing yourself every day, whether it's having a tough conversation, whether it's pushing yourself in the gym or whatever exercise you like, or reading a book that's outside your normal scope, you have to do difficult things often in order to expand your knowledge base and to just keep
Mm-hmm.
yourself motivated. When you do new things, you're like, wow, I never thought I could do that before. That gives you so much confidence in your own abilities that you realize that you can accomplish whatever you want.
Awesome, awesome. It's beautiful how you've just put that down, giving that thing that chimes you out a name, identifying yourself with it and saying, yes, I accept it is there, but I'm not accepting it to move me from who I am supposed to be to somebody else. And that
Mhm.
is what is important. It is because you are telling that inner critic, be silent, I am in charge, in a
Yeah.
manner that I am positively in charge of what is happening right now, and I am dealing with it directly so that I can solve that problem, or I can solve that issue, or I can overcome that obstacle in a manner that when I look back, I see there is some success and there is some learning lesson to it.
Mhm. And for myself,
Awesome.
whenever I do that, I realize I get like this burst of energy, like I just overcame that. So I
Mm-hmm.
haven't heard that insight from my clients, but I know when I constantly overcome that, I
Mm-hmm.
come at whatever goal I'm trying to accomplish with a burst of energy.
Awesome. Tell us one more thing that you talked about, how to be able to have those tough conversations. And I know for men, it's very difficult to have those tough conversations when they come up, because it is like it is like something just blocks them completely, like everything is shut down, poof. How
Sure.
do you how do you help them to be able to handle those tough conversations, be able to appreciate and be able to, walk through or go past those conversations?
Yeah, so there's not one step, right? It's a combination of all the techniques working together, because
Mm,
obviously what's happening is when men shut down in those conversations, they get this burst of emotions that come up, and they're like, "Oh no, emotions bad, stay away. I need to like
mm.
get away from this." The ego steps in, says, "Run. Do not engage in this conversation." It's time to go. That's that inner voice, right? So it's a combination of strategies of quieting that inner voice, accepting the emotions that come up. Guys,
Mm,
the emotions happen regardless of whether you want them to or not. You have
mm,
to accept it and go, okay, yeah, I'm angry right now, or maybe I'm sad right now based on this conversation. What is
mm,
making me this way? Okay, well,
mm,
this is the reason behind the anger. This is the reason behind the sadness. And then the idea of doing difficult things often, think about it as, something to accomplish. You're like, hey, I'm
mm,
going to have these difficult conversations. And that takes practice. Obviously, like
mm,
the learning, the listening skills and the communication aspect, to like asking the right questions and being open to responding. And it may take your spouse or your friends, some adjustments, because maybe they're not used to you having these type of conversations. But
mm,
so there may be some embarrassment there. But like, hey, this isn't you. Well, what's going on here? This is a different version of you than what I'm used to.
mm,
So more emotions are going to come up, right? And so you have to handle those other emotions.
mm,
So I think the emotional part is the biggest aspect, and understanding that it's science. Like, you're not broken because emotions came up. You're just a human being. And so accepting those emotions and
mm,
acknowledging that they're there, so you can
mm,
move past it and accomplish whatever that goal is. If it's having that conversation and just owning what's going on and realizing
mm,
the more often you have those difficult conversations, the easier they get. It's like
mm,
working out. The more often you do it, the easier it gets. It's just like any skill set that you want to practice.
mm. And I know that you've held a couple of programs that you've been doing with men. Would you say there was once where, a man just stood up and say, you know what, Justin, what you have done today or what you've walked us through today is changing my life. And I look at things differently. And, that no matter what stage they are in, they can be able to learn new things, new techniques, new strategies.
Mhm. Yeah. So a couple things come up whenever we teach classes to a large amount of men. They normally come up one on one. It's no they
Mhm.
they don't normally stand up in front of the class and go, hey, this is what I got. They
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
pull you to the side, have a conversation, be like, look, what you're teaching here is like making me rethink things. Like, I realize I can have a better relationship with my kids,
Mm,
with my wife, like, you know, make it so the work's not so much of a big deal. So that's they pull you off to the side for that.
yes.
Hearing from my clients, I've heard, a wide range of responses and going like, hey, like this has completely shaped my outlook of life and what I
Mm,
feel like, and I can accomplish. I know one of my recent clients, he kept thinking that there was a ceiling that he kept hitting. He's like, man, yeah, I'm doing so much better. He's like, hey, I'm good. I'm good right here. And
mm,
I'm like, man, no, you're not. I'm like, think about where you were compared to
mm,
where you are now. Why are you stopping? You got so much more room to grow. And it took some time. Okay, all right, let me accept that, right? And
mm,
so
mm,
he more leaps and bounds with his emotional state and the things that he was involved in to put himself out there. So we hit what we think is our ceiling, And it's like, oh, this is as good as it's going to get just because we've
mm,
never been there before. You
mm,
realize
mm.
it's so limitless, the things that we can accomplish. And that's one of the
Exactly.
things that I really, that motivates me to help these men discover their limitless possibilities. You can do whatever you want, just as long as you do the work and you try.
Awesome, awesome. And would you say that looking back to you being a detective and now you being a coach and implementing all these aspects that you learned when you were a detective, as you know, by then it was a different attitude, it was a
Mhm.
different mentality, and now being a coach, looking at things with a different mentality, looking at things in a different attitude, would you say that yes, I am right now at the right place doing the right purpose, and I am glad that I can be out there for men?
Oh, for sure. I feel like I make such a bigger impact, that one-on-one, response. Being in law enforcement, you never really know, how much of an impact you make on the society or the people that you involve yourself with, because you don't get that immediate feedback. But
Mm,
now working one-on-one with men, I get that immediate feedback. And it's like, hey,
mm,
look, after a couple of weeks working with a client, they're like, look, you've changed my life. Like, this
mm,
is what's going on. These are the new things I'm involved with. My relationship is better. My family life is better. My work life is better. So for
mm.
me, that immediate feedback from my clients is huge. And I can say, I know that I'm making a difference one man at a time.
Awesome, awesome. You're making a difference one man at a time. That is a fantastic statement. Just imagine today you are standing in front of, like, let's say 1,000 men, and you are
Mhm.
to give them 5 important points of their life, no matter what they are, whether they are 20s, they are 30s, they are 50s, even the ones who are 80s, they're still learning. What would that be?
Yeah, this was an interesting list to make. So I think the first one is to learn to say no.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have problems saying no to other people, and they take on too many tasks, or they're stretching themselves too thin. What I realized for myself is I don't have an issue saying no to other people, but what I do have an issue with is saying no to myself sometimes. And I'll take on too many projects and realize that my energy and my resources are stretched too thin, to where I
Mm,
need to come back in and realize what is really important to me and what is the most important projects that I need to work on. So
mm,
learn to say no. If you're saying no to Friday night drinking with the buddies so you can spend it with the family, like, that's okay. Like,
mm,
and you don't have to have a reason behind it. Just say no because that's not what you want. So learning to say
exactly.
no, I'd say, is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Taking responsibility for things that happen in your life. This isn't something very prevalent, and it's not something that people talk about, because it's a difficult thing. Because
Mm,
if if an interaction goes poorly, you have to take responsibility for that. Regardless of how the other person reacted,
mm,
you were a factor in that. How
mm-hmm.
you engaged in the conversation was a factor. So we're so quick to blame the other person for how these interactions go, whether it's at work or at home, that we
Mm,
need to take 100% responsibility for how that went and realize I could have made a change in how that interaction went, based
mm,
on what I say, based on my reactions that I allowed to occur. I
mm-hmm.
can change how those reactions go moving forward, and take it as a challenge to say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have a good interaction with this person, even though it may not be someone that you necessarily want to interact with. But take full responsibility, not partial responsibility, full responsibility for how everything goes in your life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
um, Committing to things. This is an interesting thing too, because we say, like, yeah, I'm committed to this, or I want to do this, or this is what I plan to do. But when you actually commit to doing something, it
Mm,
changes the way that you behave around it.
mm-hmm.
Um, Whether it's your relationship, you tell your spouse, I am committed to our relationship, or tell yourself, I am committed to finishing this project. That's so different than saying, I plan to do this. I want to do this. I'll try to do this. That kind of goes back to that content analysis and these words that we use that undermine our actions and our behaviors. So you have to truly commit yourself to something, or else you may never accomplish that. So commit to those things that you love, and prioritize. We like to say, oh, I've got 10 priorities. I've got 5 priorities in my life. No, that's just not how it works. You have like, what is that one priority? That's a very difficult thing for people to realize. And the people that I've talked to that have gone through a traumatic event in their life, I interviewed a man a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how when he had a heart attack on an airplane, and they had to do an emergency landing to get him off the plane. And the one thing that he said as they're taking him off the plane, he's like, help me because I want to see my son again. He wasn't thinking about his email inbox that he needed to clear. He wasn't thinking about that next deal he had to make. His one priority for living was his son. And that's what he realized. And sometimes it takes those traumatic events to really sift through all the noise that we create in our lives to find out what is that one priority in our lives. So that takes a lot of thinking. Like, what is that one priority in your life? Why do you do everything else, right? And then finally, take a break. It's okay to take a break. I talk to all these business owners and entrepreneurs that are scared to take a day off, scared to take a week off because they think that their business is going to fall apart. Well, there's some other aspects in there, right? The delegation and trusting your team, but it's okay to take a break. Because when you do, when you take that, you come back with renewed energy, whether it's just 5 minutes in the day. I do it all the time. If I'm working and I start to get a headache and I'm like, wait a minute, I just need to take a minute. I'll just stop, even if I'm just sitting at my desk, and I'll just sing a song real quick, just taking a little mind break and then come back at it. And you get a lot of renewed energy. So it's okay to take a break, a short one, a long one, whatever your body and your mind needs.
Wow. Awesome. Those are very, very good points that you say. Learning to say no, taking responsibility, committing to things, prioritizing, take a break. It doesn't matter how long you need it, just take a break and allow your body to recuperate so that you can be refreshed, re-energized, be able to think straight and take care of things the way you want to take care of things. I love that prioritization where you think of that one thing that you want to prioritize, because people want to do 1,001 things, because sometimes you want to feel, I want them to see I'm a Superman, I want them to see I can handle everything, but at the end of the day you're just a normal human being, blood and flesh, and you can just take this much, you can just go that far. And you need to understand that when you're sober, when you're healthy, when you're refreshed, then you're able to take care of other things as well. And to learn how to do all these things, you need to learn to take care of yourself. So Justin, thank you so much. I have just enjoyed the conversation. Tell us, what is your legacy, especially for the young upcoming men? I should say the young upcoming men.
Yeah. Well, it's every generation, right? But I just want them to realize that you can accomplish whatever you want as long as you set your mind to it. You just have to be able to sift through the noise. You have to be able to realize that you have to do it yourself. No one is going to do this stuff for you. There's no like paint by numbers on how to live your life and how to be emotionally and mentally and physically healthy. You need to figure out what that is. And sometimes a coach is a good person to guide you along that way. But like, as you know, Dr. Lee, like, we can't do it for our clients, right?
Exactly.
You have to put in the work. You have to be committed to it. You have to make it a priority. All of these things, right? So just go out there, see what you want to do, and realize that you can accomplish that if you really, really want to.
Exactly. And like you say, you must want it. It is the interest in your heart, deep down, searching yourself and say, I really want it. I want to be the best person, the best version of me. I want to be a loving father. I want to be a good leader. I want to be that person when people look at me, they can come to me. They don't feel afraid. They can ask me. They can talk to me. They can feel like I am a friend. I'm a father. I'm a leader. I am, somebody they can just sit and feel I have arrived.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Justin. That was awesome. I really enjoyed, and I'm so glad. And I know our viewers will be enjoying your show today because we've never had this kind of a discussion for men. And I know it's always a very difficult thing, especially for women to think about it. But at the end of the day, in this world, we also need men to, live a life that will also bring a greater harmony and peaceful, and it brings a lot of joy into the surrounding and in our community. When men are happy, women will be happy, children will be happy, community will be happy, because the structure of life is a man is a leader, and if a leader is broken, then the whole of the branches are broken. If a leader is healthy, then the whole branches are healthy. So thank you so much. Tell us how people can get in contact with you and pitch your next program.
Sure. So the best way to reach out to me is on the website, confidenceunchained.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook under Confidence Unchained, or my name, Justin Atherton. I always take on one-on-one clients. I have a couple spots open at the moment. I'm looking to do a big launch in January for the new program, but always have a couple spots open for some one-on-one clients. So thank you so much for having me on the show. It was such a great conversation. I'm glad that I could share with your audience and we could have this, back and forth, and hopefully your viewers get something out of this.
Super. They will definitely get something. So men, come on in, get in contact with Justin. Women, veto your men to Justin, your sons to Justin, so that they can learn how to be a better version of a man for the community, for their homes, for their families, for their workplaces, and just for their surrounding, which will be a very healthy thing to be. Thank you so much, Justin. So until on Thursday this week, we will be having another show, and our show this week will be in Germany. We are remaining at home, and we are having a stand-up comedian author who will be coming and talking to us how she became a stand-up comedian and how she combines being an author and a stand-up comedian together to impact and to influence her sphere of influence. So thank you so much, Justin, and until next time, we say stay blessed, stay healthy. Goodbye.
Your heart is tarnished black and blue. Betrayal is a feeling, not a word anymore. And you won't fall in love again. You've opened up too many times to be let down once more.